Hello and welcome back. This is David from the Personal Finance Squad. We've just finished up with the first two tasks in the budget exercise to start putting the items into the budget worksheet and to determine income. So now what we need to get into is the tasks, the expense items in there that you need to actually fill out to understand the amounts that need to go in there. Now this is where the simulation begins. So you can see the first one here we have is leasing an apartment. So remember, the goal for Jasper is to buy a house in 3 years. But he is going to live on his own, and he has a son, so he needs to provide a place. And so leasing an apartment is on his agenda. So now you're going to simulate that just like he has to do in real time. So the first thing you need to start with is you need to go to the internet, and you can simply search by, look up like apartments for rent. You can type in apartment finder as another common website. And then you need to type in where you want to live, like your geographical location, by zip code or city. And then you were going to do this for a 1-year lease. And so you can see down here we have a table that ultimately is going to be used to put your results so you can understand what you have. So you need to consider at least 3 options in your search before you narrow it down to 1. You always want to do that with just about anything you decide to pay for, if not even up to 6. It just depends. Now when you search on the internet for these things, in terms of these apartments, you're going to have plenty of options. There's plenty of places to look and plenty of places to live. What we're saying here is that now you need to look further in what matters to you in the apartment that you're going to have. So some things that typically that people like is that obviously how much it costs. Is there laundry in the unit because that provides privacy and you don't have to use quarters at the machine in the community center? Is there allowable places for pets, so you can have either it's a section in the apartment or apartments just allow pets? Is there a carport, which is a covering right for your car so that it can withstand the elements, kind of like a garage with no door? Is there a clubhouse for activities with TV and ping pong and a pool table and a dance hall you can rent out and things like that? Certainly we just talked about a pool and certainly the location. So we're going to give you some given variables to help you out with this exercise. So for example, let's say that the rent is $800 a month. But what we say here is that we assume the security deposit will be 1 month's rent up front. So what they're saying here is that not only do you have to provide $800 for the first payment, you also have to give $800, which is a security deposit that we just saw there in that sentence. What that means is that is protection for them in case something happens to the apartment, that you damage it to such a way that it's going to cost them repairs. So they'll cover carpet cleaning and painting per se, but in terms of just damage to the structure itself, they have that money built in to help pay for repairs if they happen. Now, if you don't have any damages in your apartment and you leave, you'll get that money back. If you have partial damages, whatever comes out of that is under $800, then they will refund you the difference. Okay, so other things you want to look at is we talked about that the estimated payment would be between $35 and $50. That could be 50 or 100, depending on where you live. It could all be different, but for this exercise we're just going to say 50. This is what we would recommend. Just go on the high side of things, because what's going to happen, the reason we say 35 to 50, typically when you go into an apartment complex, you'll say, what are the gas bills like? They'll say, yeah, it's generally between blah blah blah, it's somewhere in this range. So we're going to say that the gas and electric are $50 a piece. Okay, and then we have the sample grid that we already went through. And so really you just need to start making some phone calls. And technically, if you were going to get an apartment for real, you would go look at these apartments and walk through them, just like people do when they buy a house. Now, here's a tip to consider. Where you live really does determine the cost. Geography can play a big part. So if you are in a city like St. Louis, more than likely the rent there is going to be less than San Francisco. But where you live is relevant to your budget. So it doesn't matter where you live in terms of these cities, it just matters where you live. So if you find that the rent is not exactly where you like it, if you have the opportunity, you should think about maybe if I go a little bit further, a couple miles this way, it might bring the cost down for the apartment. So when you're doing this exercise, look into that. But you don't have to, but these are options, a way to control cost. And now we all talk about renter's insurance here. This is in case the place is damaged and you're covered for things. So this is similar to like homeowner's insurance you get on a home, or even like insurance for your car. So you need to factor in this cost here at $25 a month. So you have 50 bucks a piece here, and you have $25 here. So that's going to cost you right off the bat 125 bucks as part of your assessment on top of the rent. So keep that in mind. Start making some phone calls and see what you come up with. And then when you're finished, do your comparisons, talk to your fellow classmates, share this information, and then put that line item into your budget for rent, and that will be your first cost that we have now assigned out. So that's going to end it for this video, and we're going to get into exercise 2 for childcare. So thanks for joining, and we will see you there.